This conference will now be recorded.
And we only have one copy.
Oh, yeah, I was not.
I wasn't here. All right, it's 6 o'clock. Are y'all ready? I'm gonna call the meeting to order.
Neither of us were here.
All right, 6 o'clock, I'm gonna go ahead and call the meeting to order. If y'all would please stand for the invocation and pledge. I'll do that. Father, we thank you for today. We thank you for a chance to help grow our town, and we ask that you please keep your hand on us and give us wisdom as we move forward into the future, and give us a good depth of knowledge and time and patience to work out all of our kinks. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, moving to item 3. Do I have an agenda, motion to approve the agenda from tonight's agenda for March 5th, 2024?
Mr. Vice Chair,
Yes, sir.
I would like to offer an amendment motion to tonight's agenda to add to number 8, add discussion item of nominating a secretary for the commission, adding a discussion item of the chairman recap from the administrator meeting that he had, add a discussion item of Article 2, Division 1, Administration and Enforcement Authority, Section 15-200 to 15-264. And then also add a discussion item to the newsletter, town newsletter, quarterly newsletter.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second to the motion or any amendment?
Second.
All right, I have a second. So let's go ahead and read this back in. We got an amendment to tonight's agenda. We're going to, I want to do these in the same order you did. So can you go through them one more time and give us a little bit more information about that discussion with the ordinance?
I think we have to vote first and then we'll have discussion around it.
Yeah. Would just read in exactly a little
Okay.
bit more about what's on that section and then we'll vote on it.
Okay, it's under Section 8 of the discussion tonight, add discussion item of nominating a secretary. Our ordinance and duties of the commission says that we can appoint a town employee, officer, or a member of the planning commission as a secretary. Discussion item from the chairman recap from his administrator meeting. So he met with the administrator. I'd like a recap of what they discussed, if representing the commission itself. A discussion item of Article 2, Division 1, Administration and Enforcement Authority, so Section 15-200 to 15-264. I was reviewing ordinances, and it states in that ordinance that in the absence of a town of Surfside Beach zoning and building department director, that town council should appoint somebody to the responsibilities of these items stated in this chapter. And then also add a discussion item of the newsletter. The town has brought back the quarterly newsletter, so I know that we do have a part in that somewhere, so I would like us to have a discussion around what should be in that, and then in the future, I don't know if we'll meet the deadline by Friday, but in the future, I believe we probably should have a part in that and be able to produce something.
Okay, perfect. Sorry, I just wanted to add a little bit more texture. All right, can we redo the motion? Do I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended? Or, sorry, a second to the motion to amend the agenda as he presented?
Yes, I think you're ready to.
Yeah, okay. I just wanted to have a little bit more texture for some of the discussion. All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone in disagreement? Okay, motion will carry. All right. And then I have a minutes approval for February 6th, 2024, and we do have a copy here. So, Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from February 6th, 2024?
Make a motion to approve the minutes for February 6, 2024.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? No second? Okay, do we want to table this for next meeting? Do I have a motion to?
No second, it fails, so
Fails.
just move to the next.
Okay.
I think we all need to have a copy first.
Okay. All right. That's where you.
Hey,
Y'all are throwing me curveballs.
thank you, Michael. Sorry I'm late, guys. I just finished the baseball game, so if I have a little mud behind my ears, sorry.
Did you win?
We did. We did. Thank you. Thank you. All right, we are to number 5, public comments on agenda items. Seeing no comments, we will move to the director's report. Seeing we have no director, we will not have a report. I have spoken to Gerald and he's beating the bushes trying to get applicants and,
Mr. Chair?
yes, sir.
Okay, we have some amendments to tonight's minutes.
Okay, sorry.
We want to add an item to recap your meeting with the administrator,
Okay,
is one of them.
okay. We'll put that.
These are under discussions.
You mean
number
to
eight.
the agenda?
All under number 8.
Okay,
Nominating a secretary was the second one.
okay. All right.
Third one was the town, discussion of the town newsletter.
Okay.
Fourth one was discussing one of our ordinances. About the absence of a director, was that right?
Thank you.
Okay.
I think all under number 8 discussion.
Okay.
Sorry.
Right. Okay. All right, we'll do that under number 8. Okay. So are we to business now? Okay. 7A, withdraw the August 2nd, 2016 Planning Commission recommendation to create a light industrial zone.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
I move to withdraw the Planning Commission recommendation of August 2, 2016 to create a light industrial zoning district.
Okay. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Go ahead. Okay. I did not attend last meeting, and I'm just wondering where this is coming from exactly. Seems to be a new idea.
It's in the minutes from last week.
Okay.
Basically, I think we discussed at the last meeting, which is in those minutes being passed around, that we decided not to propose a light industrial district. So we have a very, very old pending recommendation to council that we need to take on.
Okay.
Well, basically, what we were doing was discussing adding a light industrial district on Sandy Lane.
Right.
And there was a discussion, okay, we don't have light industrial, do we maybe propose a footage requirement? 175 feet from 17, which would be kind of an imaginary line down Sandy Lane through the water park. but I don't think there was enough interest in creating another zone, so to speak. So
Okay, thank you.
that was the gist of it. Am I right?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
This is just housekeeping, really.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
So I did watch the meeting. I missed last meeting, of course, I got COVID, so yay me.
Glad you're feeling better.
But,
And not contagious, right?
I'm good now. But basically what I would like to say, there was a lot of mention about the administration holding that recommendation up in 2016. The administration has no authority over the planning commission. It's a state bonded commission. The administration has no authority over our recommendations. They are to go to town council. So just to make that clear in future recommendations and everything, the administration has no authority whatsoever over the planning commission. Town council can appoint us and town council can take us off, but administration has no authority.
Any other comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Motion carries. Okay, 7B, Chapter 17, Article 3, Section 396.8, restricted locations. Wow.
Chair,
That, yeah, that's, yes, ma'am.
I think everybody has this issue paper that, in the absence of a planning administrator, I just made up as I went along. The draft language at the bottom is strictly a straw man. And I know Chief Hoppin's going to speak to us again about this.
Okay. All right, well, maybe this is a good time for Chief Hoffman to come to the podium and give us, well, I'll let you go ahead. Basically, what we're discussing in what you've seen in Columbia is the medical marijuana, the medical cannabis.
Yes, sir.
You know, having certain locations or no locations, so I will give it to you.
Thank you. Thank you, commission members and citizens that are here tonight. Before I give you a quick update on the marijuana legislation it is moving through the state legislature right now. Just kind of a quick update. It died previously, I think a year before last. It didn't make it through, but it was picked back up this year as a new matter to take up. So in February of this year, it really started gaining momentum. So I appreciate you bringing this back up so that you can have an opportunity to be aware and make some informed decisions. But as of right now, it has gone through the Senate and it passed the Senate with 24 A's and 19 A's. So it's been referred over right now on February 27th, it was referred to the Committee on Medical, Military, Public, and Municipal Affairs. Two things I wanted to bring to your attention in the legislation. There has been a few changes and it's constantly evolving, but they did leave in section 4453, 2450. That particular section allows a local government to enact ordinances or regulations not in conflict with this article or with regulations enacted pursuant to this article governing time, place, manner, and number of medical cannabis establishments in the locality. A local government may establish penalties for the violation of an ordinance or regulation governing time, place, and a manner of the medical cannabis establishment that may operate here. Also in there, to your benefit, or to the community's benefit perhaps, local government may prohibit medical cannabis establishments from operating within the jurisdiction. And the burden for compliance with zoning or land use regulations and the requirements for seeking a variance should be no greater for a cannabis-related business than any other similar business, which of course puts it directly into your hands to make that recommendation. One thing of interest, and let me back up. There's no need to get into an argument about the effectiveness of medical marijuana. There's as many studies that support it as there is that say there's not. There's studies that say that it's great for certain things like PTSD, certain pain related things that have not been responsive to opioids it avoids opioid. That argument could go on to eternity. So what I hope that we're getting down to really is a decision about, whether you want this business type in your community. And if you do want it in your community, do you want to zone it to Sandy Lane or to another area as mentioned in the paper? So what I'd like to bring to your attention is something interesting that is buried into this legislation, but I think it kind of highlights the safety issue. So let's just talk about safety in the community. Section 4453-2460, medical cannabis establishments shall employ a former or retired law enforcement officer in good standing, former or retired military personnel, security service agency, or a security service agency with the ability to provide security to deter and prevent theft of cannabis products, unauthorized interest into areas related to it, and it'll have to be regulated by SLED. When I'm reading this, and I don't know what you're thinking or what the community might be thinking when they hear this, is why? Why? Banks aren't required by statute to have an armed security guard or any kind of security to avoid bank robberies or other crimes that might happen. Why are these going to be required by the state to have a security guard? There's some risk there that crime is going to take place. They know that the research from the states that have legalized marijuana in the past, whether for recreational use or medical use, there are crimes associated with it. I'm not going to say it's going to increase crime or decrease crime, but there's some risk associated that I think makes it worth considering, okay? So they have put that in the law. What is missing from the law this time is where the money's going. I find that a little interesting too. The previous law broke down exactly where the revenue was going, how much of it was going to certain places, how much of it was going to SLED. And as I mentioned to this commission in the past, no mention of it going to the local law enforcement agency that will be dealing with any associated crimes that occur. So we can go to organizations like NORML and other organizations that support the legalization of marijuana, and they focus on the studies that say that marijuana legalization, whether medical or recreational, does not increase crime. Crime goes down, but then other studies show it goes up. I like to go to government organizations, and I think I mentioned that to you last time, that don't really have a particular interest in whether it's legalized or not. But let's remember one thing. The federal government still forbids marijuana. It's still a drug that is not legal. And I think that that is a critical thing to think about, is if marijuana or THC, let's go with THC, if medical marijuana or THC is so great, why aren't they just moving it to be a regulated drug through the FDA so that it'd be required to go through the same requirements, testing, quantity, the qualitative percentages as any other drug? Why are we in such a rush to make this available? Okay, there are pill forms of this that are in the works, that is going through the FDA and going through testing. So THC may very well, and I'm not going to argue the benefits for some people of THC. It's coming in a pill form. So why this rush to push it through and start selling it in stores, unregulated? So I went to the Office of Justice Programs, and I'll be happy to provide you guys with a copy of this later. And there was a study done in September of 2019. Now, the purpose of the study was not really to answer the specific question that we're here today or tonight discussing. Their questions were, what are the impacts of marijuana legalization and decriminalization on the criminal justice resources in Colorado, Washington, and Oregon? So in a way, this is about what we're talking about here today. I don't think that you guys are concerned with whether it's really effective or what effect it's going to have on DUI enforcement and intoxicated individuals operating on our roadways. Those are all things that law enforcement will have to deal with. but you are concerned hopefully about the impact that it'll have on our community and particularly our criminal justice resources. But this study kind of balanced out a lot of things. They see some rises in some areas on demands on criminal justice, and other studies say the same thing. And there's some reductions. Well, so the primary one they say, well, there's a reduction in arrests for marijuana when you pass marijuana legalization. Duh. If it's legal, the arrests are going to go down. But what we're looking at is arrests related to other things that surround that, right? So when I got to the back to about page 35 in this, they kind of said after we're done with the research and what we've said, we want to make you aware of what our study showed, that the people we talk to, the citizens, the communities in these areas have experienced as a result of medical marijuana legalization, but also recreational marijuana legalization. So I'll just touch on a couple of things that I've highlighted here that I think would be worthwhile to mention to you as you go into this discussion. So this is the perceived flaws in the logic behind legalization and decriminalization. Colorado respondents indicated that while part of the justification for legalizing marijuana was that tax revenue from sales was to go to schools, the money is actually being used for construction projects. They indicated that the revenue has not offset the costs associated with regulating marijuana grows and distribution. I don't know if you've read every page of this. It's 66 pages of legislation. This is a huge law that they have created. It is a monster to regulate all the cards, the doctors, the physicians, the locations, the grows. It goes on and on and on. If you haven't read it, you really will start to get confused around page 10. It just is a monster piece of legislation. So is it worth it? I don't know. The state will have to decide that. They also challenge what they feel is a false argument that marijuana legalization helps police by allowing them to concentrate more on serious offenses. They stated that overall crime is up because of marijuana. Oregon respondents felt that marijuana advocates were not being responsible in the messages they are sending to children, and that early onset marijuana use will only increase with legalization. There's some great verbiage in this law about how if a business opens up in the town of Surfside Beach, how their signage can look like. It can't, they can't have marijuana leaves displayed on it. They can't have cartoons or other things that are going to attract children. But there's a real problem in some of these states that edibles and gummies are accidentally and sometimes intentionally landing in the hands of minors who are going to school high. Does the community of Surfside Beach want to have a place that sells that opportunity? I don't know. Colorado respondents expressed concern that marijuana legalization has created a more accepting attitude towards drugs in general. That indicated that some communities there has been an increase in homeless people, that a number of persons came there because of marijuana legalization but had no means of support. They felt marijuana edibles are a big problem because of their THC content, and that there actually had a number of overdose deaths from the products. Oregon reported messages are being sent by legalizing marijuana that it's safe. Jumping over to problems specific to medical marijuana, Colorado respondents, Dr. Mills liberally prescribed medical marijuana for a number of supposed medical conditions. Further, it's easy for growers to get a medical marijuana license, allowing them to grow more. We won't be having grows, obviously, in Surfside Beach. But in Oregon, because of inefficiencies in the system, individuals can sometimes obtain several medical marijuana cards, multiplying the number of plants that are available to grow on the property. States that have legalized marijuana in Colorado and Oregon maintain that there has been a dramatic increase in illegal marijuana use by minors, even in middle school. Some of the edibles are showing up in the schools in the form of gummy bears, brownies, and cookies. Consequently, kids are intoxicated in class. With both medical and recreational marijuana in the state now, the perception is that marijuana use is permissible. So this just kind of goes on and on. One more here. Respondents reported a dramatic increase in DUI connected with marijuana, more burglaries, involving marijuana theft, as well as dispensaries getting robbed by criminal organizations. Also, in 3 states, drug users are increasingly involved in a wide range of property crimes to support their habit: theft, burglary, armed robbery, convenience stores, credit card fraud, as well as violence and extortion associated with marijuana selling. Idaho respondents primarily expressed concern over DUI drug issues, but also they've seen a multitude of property offenses they believe are connected to supporting regular marijuana use. So I'll be happy to give you a copy of this. Again, it's not really a discussion anymore about what's going to happen. It may very well pass. So I hope that that'll be a little bit of information to kind of help guide you. I think my concern is taxed resources already from law enforcement, increased expectations of that. And I've told this commission before, if I was going to open a dispensary and I wanted my business to be safe and protected, I would open a business right here in this town. We have a very quick police response rate, and it's just a matter of whether the community feels like they want it here. So that's it, just a quick update and just some recent things that I've come across. I've read probably 20 different peer-reviewed research articles on this. It's 61 and a half dozen of the other, whether it's good, bad. I saw a 2024 study, I don't have it with me here today, that said that medical marijuana helps some people. It actually creates more problems for other people, and it's about a mix. So it's really just a matter of whether that's the business you want here, and if you do, where you want to place it. So I'm happy to answer any questions if I can.
Mr. Chairman? Yes. I actually have two questions. I wrote them down because my short-term memory is not so good. Thank you for everything. In your research, and these may sound like odd questions, but I think they're pertinent. Can medical marijuana be dispensed in a pharmacy, like as a prescription, and then you go to a pharmacy like Walmart or CVS?
If I understand correctly, you have to have a physician there to be able to prescribe it. Now, I haven't seen anything that said whether or not a pharmacy can or cannot dispense it. And by the way, this can't be dispensed in the plant form. You can't smoke this. It can only be dispensed in a liquid form, in a non-refillable. If you've ever seen vapes that are commonly used for nicotine, that I think in patches is the only way right now that they're talking about doing it. But I did not read anything to answer your question directly that talked about whether like CVS or Walgreens can sell this. I didn't see anything in there.
Okay, the second question is, and I don't know enough about it, but you've obviously done a lot of research. There's Delta 8, there's these dispensaries that have THC and gummies, and I think they're legal. Is there a plan to get rid of those and then have everything be medical marijuana, and I guess the main question is that going to stay legal, the Delta 8s and the THCs and gummies?
I haven't seen anything that references making the Delta 8 illegal.
Okay.
Because right now, Delta 8 is just a slight chemical change from THC.
Right.
It's not regulated or illegal. So we have businesses in the town now that are selling that product. And there's been some crackdown that's been going on around on some of those businesses where some of the products that they're selling, I'm not saying ours or any specific one, have been found to be selling items that have a higher level than what's allowed.
And the reason I ask is that it's Delta 8, I believe, is very similar to actual marijuana and maybe even more potent than the stuff I used to smoke in the 1950s. That's a joke. I wasn't quite born yet. 70s, thank you. But I think it's actually stronger, it has more of an effect, and it's and they're taking some of the chemicals that are found in regular marijuana. And so I'm just wondering, if we have that and that's still legal, what's the point in even pursuing this legislation? Seems odd to me.
I have a couple of theories, but I think that the medical marijuana is going to be a very high percentage of actual THC in those products. And of course, when it's regulated, it can be taxed. So I think that's one way. The Delta 8 stores, I don't really understand, how that hasn't gotten more attention from the legislature, but this is a very hot topic, nationwide. Even after the last time I spoke to this commission, I got some really negative feedback on my position, but my position is my position. I stand by it.
And personally, I did some research since you were here, and my position has changed as well, just in learning and understanding society and where we are and where we're heading.
As the legislation and medical marijuana has transitioned to recreational marijuana and some of these other states that are being studied, the data is starting to come out a little bit more. The primary concern that's going to have an immediate impact for public safety, in my professional opinion, is going to be DUI. There are going to be significant challenges that law enforcement is going to face if this passes about how are we going to determine who is under the influence when there are no field tests for this that can be done outside of what's called a drug recognition expert, which a lot of law enforcement officers are not. A very small percentage of law enforcement officers hold DRE certification. Blood tests, it's going to be complicated. And the only thing that the legislation actually regulates initially out of the gate, maybe it's a change that maybe was brought up to address it, is that you just can't vaporize THC while you're driving a car. And then there's some language, of course, DUI would apply whether it's alcohol or drugs, but again, how are we going to test it? How are you going to do this without blood tests? And there's a lot of challenges there, but that, again, where I start talking about taxed resources is this legislation will affect law enforcement in Surfside Beach, maybe not directly related to whether or not you decide to zone a store, but it's going to tax agencies. We don't know what's going to happen with our canine that is trained to detect marijuana. There's going to be a lot of issues that are going to come up. It's going to be a challenge for us. I hope I answered your questions.
Yes, thank you very much.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
I have two questions too. So, we may recommend something today. I don't know. It's in a business section. So, I'm just curious I want to make sure the recommendation is right if we do move forward. What businesses actually comply to that bill that's being proposed? Like what types is it just CBD or is it medical marijuana?
It's only going to be medical marijuana. This only regulates medical marijuana with actual THC in establishments that are going to dispense these products from a retail location within the town.
And my second question is, we discussed this quite a bit actually, and I know that Sabrina had mentioned that we do currently have some CBD stores in the town that possibly is not complying to our ordinances. I'm not sure if you're aware of that or not, but she's saying something related to the percentage of sales versus them being able to have a business license in town with the CBD portion. I don't know how that's managed within the town or how that is, but I do understand that in your position and then a code enforcement and everything, you're required to make people apply with our ordinances. So I'm just curious of how that's managed and determined outside of them already having a business license. Does the business licensing crew know the percentage of sales they're selling within their CBD?
That's a great question, sir. I'm sorry, because I wouldn't have access to those sales. I will follow up on that and work with Administrator Vincent in absence of a, planning, building and zoning director. And I don't know if there's even a code enforcement officer employed by the town right now, but I'll check with Mr. Vincent. And I'll follow up with you about that. I don't know if that maybe goes through the business license department or I'll try to get some information and follow up with you.
Well, I believe any, I'm pretty sure our ordinance state that any officer or law enforcement or code enforcement is able to enforce our ordinances. I don't think it's just the code enforcement in general.
Right.
So, but I do, I had a question, but it blew out of my mind.
You sitting too close.
Yeah.
I'm glad it's happening to somebody young.
Well, you see, I'm a state worker. I'll come back to me if I remember.
Thank you, you make me feel better. Mr. Chair, have you found any studies about the amount of cash that is involved around these businesses? Because I think when I was talking with Sabrina, that was kind of the big question is, even if you say it's a percentage of gross revenues or something like that for a business, it's usually, my understanding is pretty cash heavy, once we get past the medical part. The medical part, super easy because people turn over insurance cards or credit cards or things like that. But have you found anything?
In the research that I've done, one of the issues that comes up related to these businesses is that they are primarily cash operations. Whether it's still accurate or not, if there's been a change in any of the federal code, there are issues with these businesses being able to deposit cash related to their business or make deposits into the business because of federal regulations against marijuana. There's been some discussion on that. I don't have any really current information on that, but that has been something that's been seen in the research is burglaries of the businesses related to getting the product, and then also robberies of the business related to getting the cash that may be there, which is probably they're trying to address by requiring that each of these businesses employ a retired law enforcement officer, or a security, let's just say some type of security measure to protect the business from those crimes. But I haven't seen anything about numbers about how much this could generate or how much cash might be in a business. I haven't seen that.
I mean, in the banking industry, this industry gives us fits because we can't touch it.
Okay,
Nothing's documented.
right.
Ever. But, I mean, and that's coming from, risk management associations and things like that. And I was just curious.
Yeah, some other red flags that exist, like the legitimacy.
Mr. Chair.
Let me go down and I'll come back to you.
So my turn,
Down you
Mr.
go.
Chair?
It's your turn.
And ramble on, maybe there'll be a question that comes out of this, just some observations here. For those that have read it, which I think it's important if we do any vote, just to make sure that we've all read it. A couple of points to highlight. This really feels like it's an exercise to grow a state agency or create one, and cannabis is the plug-in of the product, right? This is, if you read through it, this is just a political maneuver, which is crazy. But I'm all for us being a proactive body, but this is not even law yet, right? This exists as a bill. It's changed an awful lot since we discussed it last time around. An example of that is Chief mentioned, we don't know where the money is going. A different view on that is there is no more money, right? They got rid of a 6% tax plus the ability for a local body to tax it on top of that. That was completely removed to just get it passed in the Senate. And it was, that 6% was to create an agency, and after the agency spent the money, whatever was left, 5% of that remaining amount was to be split between SLED and local law enforcement. Like, all of that doesn't even exist anymore. Likely to change again, but I just feel a little weird voting for something that's changed drastically. Another change was, it was a ratio of 1 dispensary versus 20 pharmacies. To answer your question, a pharmacy, as this exists, can't sell normal prescription. This won't pop up in CVS as it exists today.
Okay.
It used to be 20 pharmacies versus 1 cannabis dispensary. That's the ratio statewide that needed to be held. Now it's 3 cannabis pharmacies, so cannabis only pharmacy per county. So there will only be 3 in Horry County as it exists today. And that may change, which is kind of important of, let's not react to something that's not finalized, because likely we'll have to react to our reaction at some point in the future. The latest from the governor is that he's really on the fence, right? He's in a tough spot. He's 50-50. If this gets passed this year, most other states took 2 years to actually do stuff. We've got to create an advisory board, there's directors, there's inspectors, there's transport, there's growers. This is not something that if it passes in June, that we've got to go, oh my God, what if somebody comes knocking on our door? There is no ability, there is no application that someone can even file until well after this is approved, if it is approved. So I'm not seeing the urgency, plus I'm seeing a lot of volatility in the language, which leads me to believe, just sit tight and see what finally happens before we jump to conclusions on this. Some of the things that they did keep in here, which I thought were good, worth noting, is we can't have a dispensary within 1,000 feet of schools. It's got to be medical-based signage. We can't have, the sign be Scooby-Doo popping cannabis gummies, no neon. Got to have medical doctors on site, right? So they're trying to make this a very professional image, which none of our current I'm not calling them dispensaries, I'm thinking like the TCH or whatever they are.
CBD stores.
CBD stores, thank you. None of them would even comply with any component of what a cannabis pharmacy could look like, right? So these stores would completely need to change their appearance and their business model. So like I think it's premature for us to come out of here voting on something that's not finalized today. I guess I do have a question in here, and it's the follow-up to Dusty's.
Okay.
As I recall it, one of the CBD stores in town got a license through an end around by saying they're a convenience store, and they listed products that they were going to sell, and ancillary, I think I'm making stuff up now, but it was like 5 or 10% of their business would be less than 5 or 10% of the business would be CBD products, and I think they just inverted that ratio when they actually opened the store. So that is something to check out, because the town was duped, if you will.
I know which store you're referring to.
Yeah, if that's true, that's an enforceable item, I think. So, sorry, I'll get off my soapbox.
You good?
I'm good.
Thank
Exhausted myself.
Now I have a question. I don't know if Chief Hoffman can answer, maybe one of our council members can. I'm not clear, when a business comes to town and it obtains a business license and then goes ahead and does other things than what that business license says it's supposed to be doing, is that the responsibility of the finance? I don't understand how the police department would even be involved in knowing what their business license said. Whose responsibility is it to go into a restaurant or a convenience store and say, hey, you're not in compliance with your business license?
Right. So, Mr. McCracken was correct that any law enforcement officer, whether sworn law enforcement or a code enforcement officer who's just sworn within the town to enforce codes, can enforce our codes. But how the business operates, what their business license is, what the percentage of ratios of their income and all that really would be something that would be handled at the administration level between, I would think, business licensing, what tax revenue is coming in there, and code enforcement and planning, building and zoning.
That's what I thought.
Not that we wouldn't be happy to help if in
You don't have
the
the
absence of someone, but yeah, we don't have the expertise in that, but we're happy to help until we get some other staffing on board, if we can.
Yeah.
I don't
It's never
know.
been clear to me, especially in food service, that anybody, and who knows what's going on in the back room. I don't think I've never been clear that the business license people go out and inspect anything. I mean, they could say hairdresser and be serving food in the back room for all anybody knows in this town. And I don't really see that as a police department function.
I agree. Well, I agree. It's not something we've ever traditionally had within the responsibilities of the police department. It's not unless it's a criminal violation.
Exactly.
But it's team. Sometimes we'll help. We've helped with code enforcement things in the past, with quality of life things when there was no code enforcement. We have tried to help the town providing some officers to go out and check on quality of life things when we could. That would be a new area though.
Mr. Chair. So my question was, you mentioned that it gave local governments the opportunity to prohibit that type of business in this new bill. And you also said that, as long as it doesn't, it's similar business types. What would be a similar business type to a CBD medical marijuana?
I don't really know.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm not really sure. To me, I interpret it as, any other business that you're gonna zone to a certain area. Like you guys were talking about the light industrial, but I'm not that versed in those specific things to be able to tell you.
And just to follow up on what they were talking about as far as how do we determine with businesses and everything, I mean, I do believe it's in ordinance I'm not for sure, I'll have to check, but I mean, whatever percentage sales, if it's cannabis or whatever, or CBD, I mean, if it's an ordinance and we have an ordinance, then it's enforceable. So, if you don't have the material to be able to enforce it, I understand that, but I mean, then again, we should have an ordinance. If it's not enforceable, nobody has a mechanism to enforce it. So maybe something should be brought up to council as well. So. Thank you.
Mr. Chair. A little bit, but something that came up in conversation the other day, and this is kind of anecdotal, but was auxiliary business types, because I think the legislation right now is only dealing with companies that have the product on site and are distributing the product. But, we were talking about, well, what if there's like an information center that opens up in town whose sole goal is to funnel to one of the county sites? You're thinking like a small real estate agency or something like that, right? And kind of those auxiliary businesses, and I mean, the sky's the limit. People are gonna get as creative as they're gonna get, but, I don't know if there's any opportunity for us to have other businesses that are in the industry without the product, because I think the legislation only deals with businesses with the product on site.
Well, this legislation deals with manufacturing from the seed to the growth, to the plant, to the extraction, all the way down to.
But it's all around the product,
Yes.
right? So if
all
this
around.
product never touches someone else, but they are full of information, they're funneling people there.
Right.
That could be another.
Could be. Yes, sir.
And I don't know where you could take that, but just something to keep in mind.
I think in the last go around in the legislature, the Senate shot it down.
Yes.
It passed the House. Now the Senate has approved it.
There was a technical error because they had the language in there about where the money was going, the taxation and all of that, created some type of a technical error that they were able to stop it right there.
Yeah.
So they fixed that now. And I did read in a news article, because we were talking about where did that language go. One of the news articles I read, it was just a blip, said that it was shifted over into the tax code somewhere, but I didn't see any reference in the legislation where they said where it went. So I don't have any, they may just be saying that it'll just be regulated by the standard sales tax code. I don't know. But that was in one of the news articles I read as, I think it was one of the news articles out of Columbia. So it's a really challenging topic.
Did I hear you say that they will be growing the plants on site?
No.
No.
No, there's going to be separate licenses for grow facilities and then separate licenses for retail facilities.
Okay.
And everything will be regulated
Oh my gosh.
by the state.
Yes, yes, it is. It's a very complex regulation document. Yeah, it would all be regulated by the state.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything that's being said. I mean, Alex made a good point as far as the revenue, creating another layer of government. And I know originally none of the money was going to be given to a local municipality, so there's more money going to the state. You made some good points as far as if we open this Pandora's box, what comes next?
Right.
We legalize marijuana sales in Surfside Beach.
But in most states, it's generally been a three-stage process.
Yeah,
Hemp is legalized, hemp manufacturing, then medical, and then recreational is right on the heels. Once that revenue is experienced, then recreational is not far behind. The city of New York is struggling with this right now. If you do some online research, once the retail establishments are authorized, then they've got all these other establishments similar to like the Delta shops and other things, and they're all selling it too, but they're not licensed to sell it. So now local law enforcement is in the middle of it, trying to figure out places are selling marijuana that shouldn't be. It's just a snowball of complicated, bureaucratic, and why not just wait till the FDA approves it, and then it can go through a physician, and then it can be dispensed by CVS in a regulated fashion. But I don't know.
That answered my first question. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Or clarified it, thank you.
I agree. I mean, we had this discussion 2 years ago.
Yes, sir.
And the thought then was we were gonna have a public hearing, but then I think we slowed down a little bit. What are we gonna have a public hearing on? We don't even have a document in front of us. Now we're 2 years later and we're I don't agree. I agree. We should have this discussion. We should be proactive.
Right.
So when it comes, you know, we've asked all these questions. We've turned over all these rocks. We know what's good and bad for Surfside Beach. You know, like Alex said, there could be 3 locations in Horry County. That doesn't
Mean we'll get one.
Doesn't mean we want one.
Yeah.
So, you know, to me, it really boils down to the enforcement too. You know, we're pretty stretched thin now with everything we got going on. Do we really need another distraction? I don't know. No, I do know. The answer is no.
Well, if you don't mind, sir,
Yes,
I think it's great that you guys brought up an area where there's maybe some lack of coverage between, enforcement and sales and, who's watching over that, who's making sure that the businesses are doing the business that they're supposed to be doing, where's the oversight. We've always traditionally been a town that does a lot with a little as far as staffing goes. Something like this could create a need for more bodies, more people to help keep an eye over the sales. I don't, to be honest with you, I don't have any idea who in town is responsible for monitoring the sales, whether you sell, is that even a town function? Is that handled by the county? I don't know. But you bring up a great point that we need to start examining if some of these stores are operating outside of what their business license is for.
Yeah.
That there's, there needs to be a consequence, there needs to be an enforcement effort.
I agree. Any other questions or discussion? Like I say, this was a business item. I mean, this could always be tabled to a later date, if that's what we want to do, or do we want to vote on it? I'll leave that up to the commission.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
make a motion to table to a future time.
I have a motion to table to a later date. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you, Chief.
You're welcome.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for letting me
Thank
speak to you tonight.
Okay. Let me, make sure I get all these right. The number one was discussion with the administrator. Am I right about that? My discussion or the discussion or?
I would say number one would be the chapter 17 article design overlay, but I mean, if you want to, I'm not sure if you have to follow order or not. I mean, I added to the agenda and I didn't really number them, so.
Okay, well, we'll just stay on 17, Article 9, design overlay. think we had discussed about potential landscaping, trying to create a better aesthetic atmosphere on Business 17. And I'll throw this out there just for discussion. I met with John Adair 2 weeks ago, and we were talking about how we could implement improvements on 17. You know, what would be the plan? We kind of have, we have a plan in place with the facade grant. So the discussion was, instead of reinventing the wheel, use the facade grant, but say if somebody came in and wanted to do, you know, the facade grant now has an application, strengthen that application to where somebody comes in and wants to spend $2,000 on landscaping, they have to have a maintenance schedule. You know, you just can't go out there and put $2,000 worth of plants in the ground with no irrigation system, no way to maintain them. But we were talking about for the facade grant, there's money being allocated to it. It really didn't take hold, and I think we did a really good job as far as advertising through when we sent out business license, we sent out these applications. So a lot of businesses were aware of what we were trying to do, and it was a 50-50 match. And like I say, we were just throwing stuff against the wall. We're going to have money allocated, potentially have money allocated to this. Not have matching funds. Okay, let's say, all right, we got $30,000 allocated to Highway 17 improvement. We break it up into 6 different grants, $5,000 per grant. No matching funds. We take applications. We review these applications, and we choose which one needs it more than the next guy. You know, I know on the business committee, we actually were going to grade businesses A, B, and C. A being really good, B being, you know, pretty good, C being, man, they need some help. But I mean, somebody was afraid to insult the C businesses. But that was just a thought, you know, and you say, well, 6 businesses is not a lot. Over 5 years, you know, that's 30 different improvements on 17. But that was part of John and I's discussion on how do we do it, how do we implement it, how do we not reinvent the wheel, as I said. So I'll leave it open to the rest of you guys for discussion.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
I think if I'm remembering correctly, last month, there was 2 items that you raised around this issue. One of them was the 20%. If a business owner was going to improve their business, 20% of the assessed value of that business, then they had to come up to current standards on the design overlay. And the second part of that conversation was the comment around Horry County businesses. More businesses are growing in Horry County. How does that relate to Surfside Beach? And I think the undercurrent was Surfside Beach may not be participating in that. I did have a takeaway from that meeting to take a look at what we can from a comparative standpoint. I've got no data on number of businesses in Horry County versus Surfside Beach, but another component of that was to see how we price relative to Horry County. So you can go on LoopNet and figure out like lease rates for commercial businesses along 17 from Pawleys Island through Surfside, unincorporated, Horry County up through Myrtle, all the way up to the state line, are very consistent with $15 to $20 a square foot.
Mhm.
There's some outliers there for specialized medical buildings and such, but there isn't much of a price anomaly from someone making a decision to come to Surfside or Horry County on a lease rate. Looked at, with the help of Dusty, thank you, looked at the business license rates, which are usually a flat fee plus a dollar charge per $1,000 of sales, typically in the, $1 to $2 range. For every $1,000 revenue, pay $1 or $2 incremental taxes. We're very consistent with Horry County, almost identical in most circumstances. They've got a stepped-in grade, kind of like a tax schedule, like a federal tax schedule, that we're not completely matched up with, but it's like rounding errors in the grand scheme of things. So Surfside is not more or less competitive as it relates to lease prices or the cost of doing business via business licenses. So where I did see a lot of leases, a lot more than along the corridor, is inland, and our handicap is that we don't have an inland, right? Like, most of the available space or new space that's coming up for lease seems to be inland. So a little less than scientific, but
Yeah,
maybe it debunks a little of the, it's very expensive to open a business in Surfside. It might be a pain from an ordinance and
right,
from a rule perspective, but the cost of doing business didn't seem,
not out of whack.
again, it's very limited. The number of for lease places that openly publish their for lease price. Right? There's a lot of contact us for more
Yeah.
information, but what I could see, it was $15 to $20 square foot annually up and down the coast on 17.
Well, I think too, we battle just exposure. If you look at the traffic counts on the bypass versus traffic counts in Surfside Beach, Chief could probably speak to this more, but, I've seen, 45,000 on the bypass and 21 in Surfside or 22. If everything's equal and you had a choice, where would you want to go where the most eyeballs can see you? So, yeah, what we had talked about, were we really out of line? Was there anything we were doing that was just so extreme from the county to why people were choosing the county? And I think.
Our controllable items doesn't seem so. Uncontrollable traffic patterns,
Right.
space,
Metrics.
where new population and communities are being grown.
Yeah, I mean, it could be just the extra layer of taxes that people don't want to have to pay. We've been trying to solve this riddle for years. How do we get people to come to Surfside Beach versus the county? And it's a tough one. Okay.
Well, I think it comes back to your second part of your comment, where if I'm a potential business owner, and I'm gonna buy that building over there, and I'm gonna renovate it. I'm gonna turn it from
Yeah,
a furniture store into something else. That renovation, according to our ordinances, will likely trigger a whole lot of incremental work that I've gotta do to bring myself up to the design overlay. Where if I took over a similar business outside of town and was just subject to the county rules, that incremental cost wouldn't be there.
right,
It's a double-edged sword.
right.
The people that do move in, they generally have to make it nicer here.
Bring it up.
But are we
to-
stopping people from wanting to open or change a business
Yeah,
because of the incremental requirements?
okay. Well, like I say, that information came just from my conversation with a county, I'll just say a county official, that we really needed to look at our overlay because we were different than the county, but it doesn't sound like to me that we are.
But no, let me make sure I'm clear. We are different than the county with the overlay.
With the
We're not
percentage
different with price.
Operating costs.
Yeah, it's the price of entry is higher.
Yeah, okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
I had a conversation about this very thing the other day. This design overlay ordinance was created, I think it was 2013, it passed town council. And my recollection, it was over 10 years ago, is that there were a lot more teeth in it than it wound up with. And I would really love to get my hands on the 2012, 2013 minutes from both Planning Commission and Town Council. Maybe if we could see what teeth were pulled, we could consider them for something to put back in. But there's no access to those minutes.
Any suggestions?
Mr. Chair.
You can go to waybackmachine.org or whatever, and you can go back to surfside.org, and the minutes will still be in there. It does take quite a bit to load them up and everything, but you'll be able to find them in there.
What I'll be looking for is the document that was submitted, not just the minutes, but this is what Planning Commission presented to council. And you think that would be in there?
No.
Yeah.
No, not at all.
That's my dilemma. And I think it would be in the paper minutes.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Anecdotal again, but I talked to someone who had been lending in this part of the Strand for almost 40 years. And there wasn't a single deal that came to mind that at least the bank touched at the time, or he touched through the bank, where someone was tossed up between Surfside and another part of the county. And they specifically chose the other part of the county because of anything inherent to Surfside. It was always due to traffic numbers. Where can I get the most volume, or especially repeat customers? So anything where you're gonna have any kind of repeat business, right? So I'm not talking about buying a golf cart, where you might do that once every 5 to 10 years. I'm talking about like restaurants, selling some kind of widget, trying to tap into tourism, things like that. It's just not really what we're seeing here, compared to the rest of the county.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I mean, I read through this district overlay, and I mean, I believe it's a great overlay. I think it does the purpose that they wanted it to do. Also, I don't think in any business mind that landscaping and stuff determines my business location. So I can tell you that before I left this week to go to North Carolina, I drove through town just looking at just the 17 corridor. And the things that I see issues is, I mean, we have signs deteriorating, signs missing. We have road closed signs out here. So that tells me it's a bad communication, a bad partnership with South Carolina Department of Transportation, because when they come in and developed that and made adjustments to frontage road, they put big, ugly road closed signs all down through there. And I mean, how do you do that to a beach town? So in my sense, I feel like that's bad communication from the planning stages and everything of that work. Again, I go down through there, the landscaping and stuff that's already installed, which we do have a lot of landscaping. I mean, I drove down there on the way back from North Carolina today, and then when I went down as well, a lot of the landscaping is not maintained. So therefore, I know it was mentioned that in council as far as putting some landscaping installed and stuff like that, but you also got to consider who's going to maintain that. We already use tons of labor. We already talk about staffing issues. Is the town going to maintain all this landscaping? How are we going to be able to put it on properties and stuff as well? I believe the grant that we have, if we, and I don't see anything wrong with the grant. What my concern is, I can't remember, but I did listen to some business committee meetings or read their minutes, and they mentioned how many applications they have per year or whatever for these grants, and it was quite low. So it doesn't tell me there's much interest into spending that kind of investment into landscaping or beautifying their areas. And also, if you consider our comp plan, everybody wanted local, small businesses. They didn't want national chains and stuff to come up in here. So you got to think that most of these people have small overheads. They're not going to spend that kind of money on extra stuff. And then also just enforcement. If you go down through 17, there are plenty of enforcement issues down through 17. So, I mean, I just don't understand how we can modify the ordinance. I think it's a great ordinance. It requires, we talked about 20% rural
I mean, that's doable. It's based off probably county appraisals, I would assume, not ours, or just the business model in general. I mean, that encourages people to bring it up where the town's not responsible for beautifying the town. So what my big issue with this is we need to be able to attract businesses, and to do that, we need to attract people to this area. We don't have sidewalks. We don't have all the lighting and everything, all your light poles, all your underground wires and all that. We haven't even started most of that on 17. And when I drive down through there, no sidewalks and everything's not getting your walkable people. Nobody's going anywhere. It's hard to transit through all the frontage road and everything with golf carts and everything else, and that's mostly what people use here. So I just really feel like landscaping is not what's important. I feel like, I don't know, you need bike routes, maybe a golf cart lane, which I know South Carolina Department of Transportation ain't gonna do, but the town may invest in that. Also, you need some sidewalks and stuff up through there too, just so people can get into those businesses and know what they want. And then also, we talked about, I pulled out a thing that said, if any single building or a strip mall was 50% unoccupied for more than 100 days, then it takes that business into compliance of moving everything up to compliance in their ordinance. So how's that? I can tell you Napa building's been over there for many years, just deteriorated and boarded up. Who's enforcing that? So, I think it's really many things and many variables with 70 corridor, but I don't think it's anything to do with, I don't think this ordinance overlay is distracting anybody from coming to Surfside.
Well, we have a lot of absentee owners on 17 that own commercial property, that as long as they're getting their check every month and they live Pennsylvania or New York, as long as they're getting their rent check, I don't think they really care. That's true. I don't think they care. Okay. All right, well, it was just something that I thought, we could do a little research on and see if we were really off base, but it sounds like to me, I don't think we are. So, all right, we good with that? Or we don't have a solution that's in the council, but.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Just one more thing. I know that I did pull our franchises up, and with our utility franchises with the utility companies haven't been reviewed or renewed for a very long time, 20 years. So I don't know how that's comparable with other communities in our area, but I know that we use a lot of that utility franchise fee to be able to do underground wiring and stuff. So I don't know if it could be renewed or reviewed to maybe accommodate the town a little better. I've already sent it to administration and everything, but maybe it's a way to increase our funds and revenue for underground wiring.
Yeah, maybe we could talk to Santee Cooper, and instead of a dollar for dollar match, maybe a $2 for dollar match.
Things have changed in 20-something years.
Yeah. Any other thoughts? Okay. Now we'll move to the amendments. The discussion with tell me that one. I'm sorry, I wasn't here when you added that. Discussion with the administrator.
So you said that in the last meeting that you were meeting with the administrator on Thursday, so I just felt like if that was in representation of the commission, that we should understand what that communication with the administrator was.
Well, I would love to sit here and tell you that he has got a desk full of applications, but he doesn't. He has some ideas potentially, and I'll share this, and these were just ideas, hiring a planner. Not sure he was going to do the planning and zoning director. He wasn't sure. He was really disappointed because of the lack of applications for the job. So discussion with him was, okay, we got to keep going as a planning commission. So we're trying to do our own agendas now. Mary Ellen's been very helpful. So if anybody has any ideas what we need to discuss, since, like I say, that table's empty. Obviously, council gives us direction to do their bidding also. We just gotta stick it out and keep moving and keep trying to improve the town. But that was just the gist of my conversation with him. He's just